Man, it's just a pleasure and an honor to come here on the His Print American football, baseball, basketball, hockey, wrestling, sports network of relationship building. And just thank you guys over there for joining us. And just what a pleasure and honor it is for me to introduce to you Steve Littlefield, who's just a dear friend of mine. And Steve, if you wouldn't mind, just give these guys just a quick overview and a rundown of where you come from. I know Simonton Church pastor, and give us where you're from.
Yep, I grew up in the Houston area and played basketball. I'm 6'5", 225 now. Played basketball growing up and also soccer, and enjoyed both of those. And went on into college and played basketball at Otten College, a small school that's in the north part of Texas. Enjoyed my time doing that, and God used that in my life. Now, 24 years being at Simonton Community Church. Simonton is a very rural part of the Houston area. We're straight west of Houston, Texas, and we're right on the edge of civilization, as we like to call it. Just down the road 5 miles is lots and lots of houses and businesses, but out where we live, right outside the window that you see the blinds closed behind me, there are cows and horses. So it's an interesting mix of people in our church and in our community, but it's a good place.
Amen. Coach, Steve, if you wouldn't mind, and we're all coach, right? If you wouldn't mind, tell me a little bit about your family.
Okay. I'm married to my wife, Kisa. We've been married 25 years this year. We have 2 boys, 24 and 23, Justin and Colin. They both were athletes growing up. Both were way more talented than their father or their mother. They both enjoyed football, and they also excelled in basketball. And they played up through high school. Both of them had chances to play outside of high school, go on to college, but they both chose to not do that, felt led by the Lord to pursue him in other ways. But as parents who were both athletes growing up, it was a thrill to be able to coach them on occasion, but also watch them, more importantly. And we were the loud parents on the sideline yelling for them. And sometimes on occasion yelling to help the referees understand as well.
Yeah, you got to tell them when they made the wrong call.
Oh, yeah, somebody has to.
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, Steve and I met through a ministry called Trace Diaz. We both are spiritual directors within that ministry and have had a blessed time over the last several years, 4 or 5, of getting to know Steve and spending time with him, and even spending some dorm time in a cabin just talking about life, and just love his love for the Lord and his love for people. And I've asked him to come here today to give us what God's laid on his heart. So, Steve?
David, thank you. It's an honor to be able to speak to you coaches on the other side of the world through this crazy technology that we're all still trying to get used to. When David asked me to do this, one of the thoughts that came to me immediately is a lesson that God began to teach me all the way back in 7th grade or junior high. I was probably 12 years old. I remember that I was playing basketball for our school team on a 7th and 8th grade basketball team of guys. And then I was also playing at a YMCA on a soccer team. We had a great soccer team. We were state champs for 2 years in a row. And I had a practice at school that was a tough practice that I knew I was going to have. My mom picked me up after the practice, and on the way to the soccer game that I had that evening, I'm changing uniforms in the car. And as I'm going, I'm tired, and I'm explaining that to my mother that I'm tired. And I'll never forget, she taught me a verse that has stuck with me all these years that I still use today. I used it throughout my sports career. I used it now in life and in ministry when I'm feeling tired. But it's Philippians 4:13. It just simply says that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And my mom was telling me about that verse, and she said, just say it with me. And so there in the car, me in the back seat, her driving me to the soccer game, with me changing, putting on cleats and putting on my shin guards in the back of the car, I just began to say that verse over and over again. When I got to that soccer game, I immediately was thrust onto the field to participate in the game. I didn't even have time to warm up for that. And I'll never forget that I just continued to say that verse over and over again. And especially when I started to feel tired, I would just say again, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That night I scored 2 goals. Our team won. We had a great night. But that lesson that stuck with me for all of these years of Philippians 4:13 still ministers to me today. And it's a reminder to us that God's word is true. If it's true now, it's always true. Doesn't matter what age we are. Doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Doesn't even matter what country we live in. What matters is the truth of God's word. And again, Philippians 4:13, God says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He gives me the strength to do the things that God has called me to do. So I just want to encourage you with that. And I hope that you'll use that verse to maybe help you as you walk through life, maybe through the difficulties of life right now, to know that in your marriage, with your teams, with the circumstances of maybe not being able to be together with your team like you'd want to, maybe dealing with an injury, doesn't matter what the circumstances are, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So let me pray for us as we close our time together.
Amen. Thanks, Steve.
For these coaches, I thank you for their families that may be listening, maybe even for some athletes that may be listening. I pray that you would help us not just hear your word, but also take hold of your word and use it in our lives. Thank you that we can do literally all things through Christ who gives us the strength to do it. Father, we do thank you for the simple truth of your word and how it impacts our lives. May all of us hold on to that today. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks you, Steve. I appreciate it so much. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
This pleasure, an extreme pleasure for me because of history that rides on this introduction of Coach Chip Otten from Coldwater High School in Ohio. Coach, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It's good to see your faces. I know it's been, I guess we saw each other last year once, but boy, before that, it was, gosh,
wow,
30 years probably, something like that.
Something like that for sure. You're at Coldwater High School, head coach there. Give me we met at Bowling Green State University, where you'd gone to play football there, and we were in grad school together. Got in trouble together there a little bit, and had some good times. But give us a history of where you're from and your high school or your college and then your coaching career.
Yeah, so like you said, we met at BG in grad school, but I also went to undergrad at BG. I went to Coldwater High School, although I grew up in Kettering, Ohio, a suburb of Dayton, until high school. So after high school, going to Coldwater, like you said, went to BG, played football at BG, and then was a GA there, along with Dave was a baseball GA, and I was a football GA, and fortunately we got to know each other really well. Mm-hmm. From there, I went to Ball State for one season, which is in Indiana, an adjoining state to Ohio. Coached there 1 year, and then I was really fortunate enough to get on with Indiana University when Bill Mallory was there. When they had probably the best run they've ever had in football at IU under Coach Mallory.
Now, tell me, I know we've talked about this, but my memory, getting older. You were there. I was at IU from 87 to 89, 89, first of the 89. And you were there when?
This January of, I think 85 to the spring of 87. So we just missed each other.
We just missed each other, which would have been even crazier.
We would have hit that same time. But of course, you were there with Bill when Bill Mallory was there.
Sure was.
Really good guy. I learned a heck of a lot from him. He's a really good person. His 3 sons are all college or pro coaches. I think his son Kurt is the head coach at Indiana State now, and I'm not sure where Doug and Mike are now. They were in college for a while, and then I think both ended up in the pro. So I'm not sure where they are. But man, he was a guy that really took care of us young guys and made us coach different positions, and really was a good person. He knew everything about the program, knew everybody, and just had a lot of respect for everybody involved. I know I've been around a few places, and the head coach maybe not even know who the GAs were, let alone their girl at that time, Diane's name, and she wasn't around much because she was teaching in Ohio. And, yep, how's Diane doing? You know, things like that. Like, how do you even remember her name, let alone, you know, ask about her? So he just was a really good overall manager and just great head coach, I thought.
And so after IU, where'd you go?
So from IU, again, I got hooked up. I went back to high school, and I went to Middletown, which is between Cincinnati and Dayton, a big Division I program. A lot of history of really good athletes. Jerry Lucas.
And Coach, when you say Division I high school football, what size are you talking? What's the?
That's good. That's a good question. We have 7 divisions in Ohio now, and at that time, I think it was 4 or 5. But Division I is the largest, so that goes from anywhere from 600 boys up to like Mason High School. I think has 1,300 boys in the top 4 grades.
So that high school alone is about 2,600 to 3,000 students.
Mason High School is the largest in the state. Middletown not quite that big, but it's always been Division I. It's a history of probably more so with basketball with Jerry Lucas and Chris Carter. Of course, Chris ended up playing at Ohio State. Todd Bell. I mean, there's been some really, I think, you know, back in the day in the 50s and 60s, they won like, I don't know, 6 or 7 basketball state titles. But so I was in Middletown for 15 years.
Wow.
I got hooked up with a really great guy named Jim Place, who coached with my dad when we lived in the Dayton area. And he was a young guy then when my dad was probably I don't know, in his 40s, low 40s, something like that. So that connection got made. Jim coached he just retired last year, I want to say 48 years. And you know, he won a state championship at Chaminade Julienne after he left Middletown. So I was an assistant there for 8 years. And then Jim had moved on, and then there was another head coach in there, Joe Tracy, and then I was the head coach for 6 years. And then moved on. I coached 1 year at Valley View. When I was the head coach, we had some good years, some not so good years. And I guess at that point I was in my mid-30s and maybe not quite experienced enough or old enough to handle that situation. I don't know. We had some good years, but eventually had to move on. And I spent 1 year at Valley View High School, which was a Division IV at the time, and they had won a couple state titles. And then fortunately, a good friend of mine was coaching at Coldwater, and so I got in at Coldwater, and I was assistant here for 8 years under John Reed, one of the really Christian guy, had his own ministry, and really tough dude though, as far as discipline but
do it the right way.
He said, he kind of set the standard. He got Coldwater's program, and it had been good for a long time, but then it had a little lull in there. But he brought it back and really brought the discipline part of it, of just doing things right. And so since then we've been in the playoffs 20. It's a state record 20, I think 3 straight years in a row.
Wow.
And so he unfortunately passed away of esophageal cancer 10 years ago, almost right at this time.
Okay.
And so I've been the head coach now for 10 years.
Okay. So and so this is where you grew up. I mean, this is where you went to play. You played high school ball there.
Correct. I went to high school and really had a lot of fun. We had a baseball is really big here too, and so I got to pitch in the state finals as a junior. And unfortunately, we lost, but so I experienced some really. Our baseball coach, I think, is 3rd or 4th on the all-time state win list. We've got 7 baseball state titles now and 6 football. And actually, our bowling just got started recently. But the guy who owns the bowling alley does a great job. I think we've won 5 bowling state titles between guys and girls. So we've had a good run of a lot of different good sports. Girls have won track a couple times and basketball a couple times. And so we have 25 state titles at our high school.
Wow. I want to bring this up because I haven't been able to in other interviews, and you're kind of alluding to the fact of the school unity and the school spirit, if you will. And you're talking about sports that are actually in the high school, which over there, that's not heard of. You don't have sports in school. You have kind of what we would call select or club sports
teams,
outside of school. How many sports there are at Coldwater?
Yeah, because we're a smaller school. Like if we go back to the divisions, Coldwater is a Division 6 school in football right now out of 7, and we've been 4 and 5, and they've expanded football. But like in basketball, we're 3 out of 4, and so on. So in our school, in like for example, in the fall, they have cross country boys and girls, golf boys and girls, volleyball for girls, and football for guys. I think that's it. In the wintertime, we have basketball, obviously, for both, swimming for both, wrestling, and bowling. And then in spring, baseball, softball, track. Does that sound right? Baseball. Yeah, just baseball and track. And so as you know, in the bigger schools, gosh, now almost every school has getting lacrosse and
soccer and
soccer. So we don't have soccer, which probably has really, soccer would be a really good sport for a lot of our. We do have girls soccer in the fall. We do not have boys soccer.
Okay. Do you have volleyball?
Most of our league does not have soccer, which probably really helps as far as our league being really, really good at football because we're not losing anybody.
Right.
To soccer.
Everybody's focused on the football side of things.
Right.
Coach, just quickly, what is the mascot for Coldwater?
The mascot is Cavalier.
Okay.
The Coldwater Cavaliers, but really over the last, I don't know how well you can see this.
Yeah, I can see it.
Over the last, probably 15, 20 years, this shield has kind of like been the main logo a little bit more probably than the Cavaliers. So a lot of times I say we're the Cavs, CAVS. I probably like that more. And this shield, all of our sports, all the uniforms have it. Our gym floor is really cool now. They just redid it. It used to be a Cavalier head. Now that's just a huge shield. So a lot of the things we have a saying called protect the shield. So a lot of the philosophical things that we talk about as far as, taking care of each other and helping each other and playing together and old guys, you're part of this. You're going to help our young guys. That's just part of the way it is. So we call a lot of that philosophical kind of stuff protecting the shield.
Wow, that's cool. Hey, I want to say thanks first and foremost as we get into the interview portion and answering questions that we'll be talking about. Thanks for taking the time to join us, and thanks for this will elevate the sport, elevate the opportunity to create relationship. That's what his print's all about, and this gives us the wonderful opportunity since we can't travel, since we can't be there. We're trying to provide ways in which the coaches like yourself, guys, you've seen some of the pants and stuff that have been donated by Coldwater, Coach Otten, whom I got a chance to see last January during that cold spell that I traveled through Ohio with my warm-bloodedness now. And he just, through this, will just give us a wonderful opportunity to love on them. So thank you so much for taking that time.
Good, thanks for having me. I don't know if those guys have much internet access, but we have a football site, cavfootball.com. It's a really good site, all kinds of highlights and interviews. And
let's say that again, Coach, so because they do, and they'll look at it.
Yeah, cavfootball.com.
Okay.
And then you can go to any of the games and the highlights and records and I do a weekly interview show kind of thing. It's
super. All right, guys, there you go. Get a chance to look at some.
If you want to watch any highlights
football.
of high school football, yeah.
Amen. Coach, tell us a little bit about your family. Bride, you obviously mentioned she was a girlfriend at the time, but obviously that's your bride now, I'm guessing, but and family?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Dave. I've been really, really fortunate with my family growing up. 6 siblings, my mom and dad. Very, really, really solid. Lots of people say their moms were the rock of the family. Dad was, coaching and teaching and working. And of course, back in the day, man, they weren't making very much money at all. And mom ended up becoming a school secretary, which was kind of cool because she was at school then all the time. But so 7 siblings, counting me, all still hanging in there, anywhere from 60. I guess my sister is 67, all the way down to Pat. My brother Mike's 55, 5 younger than me. So sports was always a part of our lives. My oldest brother played D1 soccer at Bowling Green, and then my brother and I both played at Bowling Green. So that was fun. But just I don't know. Fortunately, we didn't really have any major issues, problems. We seemed to get along really well. We have family parties. My mom and dad ended up back in Coldwater. They had moved to back to Dayton, where they came from, and they unfortunately passed away. But they were 91 and 88, 89.
Great, yeah,
So,
great lives.
so they had great lives, and really up till that last year or two, things were good. They could travel and go to games and have fun.
How
But,
about your family?
yeah, my family. My wife Diane was a Coldwater grad, a lifetime Coldwater girl. She has 11 siblings, and she grew up on a farm, and then went to Bowling Green, and she just retired last spring, a 35-year speech pathologist in the school systems. So both teachers, so that's been good. And then I have 4 children. My daughter Samantha is a teacher here in Coldwater, so she followed, I guess, both of our footsteps. And then the 3 boys, my oldest son Brady, he's a doctor up in the Cleveland Clinic right now, so he's in his residency. So he's got I think year and a half more, something like, to be on his own, I guess. But he is a doctor. And then Troy is in Cincinnati. He and Drew is actually out in California right now for his job. He works for Parker Hannifin, which is a worldwide company, and they take their young guys and they go 6. His first year he's been in Ventura, then he's going to go to Ogden, Utah in July for 6 months, and then another 6 months, and then he'll get placed. He's a supply chain management guy.
Wow.
And Troy works for he's in Cincy having fun, and he works for a health carousel. They place traveling nurses. So he works in I think he's in the finance department, or the payroll department right now. So fortunately they're doing good. None of them got laid off work. So we've been very fortunate. And I'm really, really lucky to be back here in Coldwater. It's just a good Christian-based community with a lot of faith, and people take care of each other. And, it's a pretty chill place to live.
Yeah, I remember visiting there, like I say, this past January, a year and a half ago now, I guess. But just the open, reminded me of Bowling Green back in the old days, the wind and the open air of Ohio. Hey, yeah. Coach, before I get into asking a few more questions about yourself and your family, what do you know about the Balkans? Do you know where Croatia, Serbia, and Bosnia are?
I guess I know they're in Eastern Europe, right? I think.
Well, yeah, they're in the Balkans, and I'm going to put you kind of close to this map. I don't know if can you see that pin that's in there?
Yep.
Just above Africa there. So just near Italy. The Balkans is a Balkan area region that kind of goes down from.
So it's closer
Hungary.
Down to Italy.
Yeah,
I was thinking more north.
You got Italy, and then you got the Adriatic Sea, and then you've got Croatia, and then Bosnia, Serbia.
Okay, yep.
And it connects to Greece, which is the lowest in there.
One of my kind of interesting story. One of Diane's best friends lives in Greece. She met her husband in at Wright State in Dayton. He's a fur trader, and so she lived in Greece for, I don't know, last 30 years, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's
very cool. Very cool. Coach, give me your favorite, and whenever I ask this question, it's always tough because you have so many, but what's your favorite memory as a player? Maybe that silly time, or that kind that just elevates, or maybe it was the time you scored, triple flip into the end zone, beating, undefeated, whoever. But what kind is your favorite memory as a player?
Yeah, that's a good question. Unfortunately, like lots of us athletes, some of our memories that we have are things when you screwed up and didn't do so well. Like I said, I pitched in the state finals, and of course I got that. I think that was my only loss ever, because we won all the time. So most of us pitchers, we always had winning. We hardly ever lost. Let's see. That's a great question. I would say one of my favorites was St. Henry is a small town 5 miles away from us, very similar to us. Mm-hmm. And as a senior, at the time, they were undefeated, and I think we had lost once. So I want to say they were like 6 or 7-0. We were 6-1. Big rival. They had never beaten us, and so they hadn't had football that long, and so, but they were good. I mean, they've continued to be good, but. So they were undefeated, and they thought this was the year that they were going to kick our rear. And I probably, as a high school player, probably had my best game. And I don't remember statistically or anything like that, but that was fun. That was probably one of my favorite ones. Going to the state finals in baseball was fun.
Very cool.
At Bowling Green had some good fun games. My best game ever was unfortunately my last game, and we lost 29-28 in the California Bowl. But I had, I don't know, I think 130 yards rushing and 11 catches and returned some punts and kicks. But so those are ones that kind of stick out.
That's awesome. Speaking of, you had mentioned the shield, right? And the protection of the shield. So I want to shift gears there a little bit and ask about your coaching philosophy and what, kind of your marching orders, if you will. If I were to play under you, or one of these guys were to come to play under you, what would be your philosophy? What would they see?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wrote some things down. One of the things that, as a coach, I guess learning from all those good coaches is that really coach with constructive criticism. Our staff, we don't do a lot of barking and screaming, and that our kids help with that just because they for the most part do what we ask them to do. But it doesn't help. You're a baseball guy, and I always thinking I coached Little League with my sons and coached some baseball actually at Middletown a couple of years. But if you yell at a kid, hit the ball, well, that's what he's trying to do.
Isn't that the truth?
If you're just barking at him, but if you could tell him, hey, you need to have your eyes open to see that ball. So we really try to coach with constructive criticism all the time and demonstrate, or get an older, as I'm getting older, I used to be able to demonstrate everything. Now it's a little bit tougher. But so you get a kid that knows what they're doing. Like I said, the older kids always have to help our younger kids. That's just part of the way we do things. I would say I'm a half full guy all the time. Always looking, to try to be positive and make it fun. My dad, I think I learned that from my dad more than anybody, that it's supposed to be fun.
Did you play for your dad?
I did for in high school.
Yeah.
So that was a good experience. And he always seemed to make things, even though we were serious about it, but he made things fun. And you tell the kids, fellas, it's supposed to be fun. We want to win, but we want to make it fun. Like I said, the young guys, or the old guys have to help the young guys. That's part of it. Let's see, what were some other things? I think this came from Lou Holtz, but he had a thing called his 3 most important things to carry you through life are: can you be trusted? Are you committed to the task at hand? And do you care about people, but then show it? I think a lot of times, and I was probably like this, I think more so when I was younger, especially when I was playing and in high school, I think I really cared about other people, but probably didn't show it like I could have more, or, I'll just take care of myself. And as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, that's enough. But, as we get older, as we find out, you got to show these guys that you care and to help those people. So,
well, you bring up a great point there. I mean, it is, you think in your mind, well, I do care for people, but if you don't show it, they don't know that. And if your attitude becomes more about, hey, I'm going to do my best, but then, am I picking up my fellow teammate and my fellow player?
Right. And so we talk a lot about to our seniors to try to, be the leaders. And for some of them, it's hard to be vocal leaders, but there's all different, as there's all different kinds of ways you can lead. You can pull a guy by themselves and talk to him as a player to a younger guy. Or sometimes when we're stretching, especially early in 2 days, I'll make them stretch with somebody they don't know very well. A senior, hey, grab a freshman that you don't know very well. And then I might ask them a question. What'd you learn about Dave Moss today? And they'll
That's
say,
good.
well, he likes to fish, or he likes to, just stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
just
good.
To integrate them as one big team.
Let me ask you, when you said protect the shield, what would that entail to me? I'm sitting in your first team meeting, and you're telling me you got to protect the shield. What are you telling me?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the trust commitment, it always comes up. One of the things I really like to talk to them all the time, if I were to say control the, and they would all say control the controllables. Make sure you control what we can control. Don't worry. everybody, sometimes we worry about all the stuff that we don't control. And so control the things we really control. The team's going to come first. Play your role. Even though they're individuals and we want to get to know them as individuals and for them to have fun and be themselves. We really try to help them understand that you're not going to all be the quarterback. You're not all going to get the ball. So play your role and do the best you can within that role. And so that's a huge part of it. I'm just kind of looking at some of these things I wrote down here. One of the things we've talked about, this kind of interesting phrase, one of a coach that became a principal, and he's retired now, but he always talked about be where you're at when you're there. I like that phrase. Be where, man, wherever you are, whether you're in class, whether you're talking, you and I talking together, that's the only place you are. Let's be focused. And, I know practice gets hard sometimes, but that's the only place you are. You might as well try to take advantage of it. And of course, as I've gotten older, I've learned to do that better, but we keep talking about it and keep talking about it. I think a respect factor in our small school, kind of most kids know each other to some degree, at least know who each other are. We really try to convince them to respect their teammates and respect the other students and the teachers. Because you know how we can get as athletes. We can get a little cocky and like I'm all big and bad. And we talk to them and say, hey, you for most of our kids, they don't play after high school, so it's like nobody's going to care how good you were in football 3 years from now if you treated them like crap.
Right.
So, and I'm sure we have some guys that other students maybe look at them and think they're, don't maybe think they're treat them very well, but we really try to do that. So those are protect the shield kind of things. Playing with sportsmanship is a huge one. We just, I don't know. We don't let them do a lot of when we celebrate. It's as a team. When they score a touchdown, they all go and they have fun, but they're not doing an individual dance and running up and down the track, all that kind of stuff.
I understand.
So those are some things.
Yeah. Well, and that answers question. What do you wish to instill in your players? And you can see all through that it's that the game's bigger than you, life's bigger than you, and protect those that you play with, but also show that you care and being respectful. Coach, any personal goals at this late stage of your coaching career that you have that are elevated right now? I mean, do you want to go out as, I don't know what going out means. That might be 5 years, 6 years. You're not going to go out until you win a state championship. What are some goals that you might have?
Yeah, that's a good question. And as you get older, certain things change. And I've seen some articles, pretty cool articles about, when you're a young coach and you're so into like just all over everything. And then if you get good and win some championships, then you think, okay, now I've arrived. Partially like, okay, now I've got that ultimate goal. And how do we keep that? I guess, I don't know. My first thought in mind came that when I do go, that the program's still in good hands. And fortunately, the guys that the staff guys that are working for me, there's 8 of us. One of them's our principal, so he volunteers. But the 7 of us, I don't think anybody's going anywhere. I think they're all going to be Coldwater guys. And so it will be eventually turned over to one of those guys. And so they have a good feel of how things. Most of those guys had played for Coach Reed. Several of them had played for Coach Reed. And so they kind of get what's going on these last 20 some years. Mm-hmm. And so that probably at this point, once you win, you always want to get back there. And so one of our coaches has not been part of one of the state championships, and he was a really good player, really good person. And he was away for a while and coached in a couple programs that hadn't won hardly at all. So he got to come back, and he was so excited. Oh, we're going to win a state title. And since he's been here, it's been, I don't know, I guess our last one was in 15, I guess, was the last time we won it. So he hasn't got that would be really satisfying to me to see Joe. His name's Joe. For Big Joe to get a state title would be fun.
That's cool. Coach, what's your favorite part of the game?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. It may sound crazy. I love practice. I like the, something I tell lots of people. I'm probably a better assistant coach than I am a head coach. I just kind of, I think, fell into the right place at the right time. I really like teaching the skills and then just hanging out with the kids. It's fun for me. You're walking out to practice. We always kind of walk out. Coach Reed started this. We call it 2x2, and so they all have a partner. And when we go to practice and when we enter for games, when we walk out on the field, we come out 2x2 kind of thing. And John started that, and usually I warm the kids up, so I'm walking out with them, and you try to grab a kid each day and just say hi. Hey, how's it going? Everything all right, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. I would say, just teaching the skills and hanging out with the kids.
Yeah. So you guys don't have the Remember the Titans dance at the beginning as you're stretching before the game?
Not too much. They do underneath the for some reason, I don't know who started this a while back, but this been going along. They do we call it arm in arm. And so they all lock arms. So the seniors will be in the front row right on the goal line underneath by the goalpost.
Yeah.
And we always wait till the other team comes out first. And they'll stand there forever unless the refs would make them. And they'll just wait, and they'll do a little bit of sway, but not too carried.
I love it. Coach, speaking of practice, what would be if you only had a chance, maybe you had 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or whatever, and you only had a small amount of time, what would be your favorite drill to teach a coach or a team?
Oh, favorite drill. That's a good question. Again, my first thought was tackling stations.
Okay.
And so what we do is we'll separate into. Sometimes we won't do with the linemen. Sometimes we will, but early on we'll have like 5 different stations, and so a couple of them will involve. Actually, we don't take people down ever, but a couple of them will be like angle tackle, and there's a couple that we have we have these wheels. I don't know if you've ever seen the wheels that they use now. They're like a big giant donut.
Okay. Yeah.
So in today's world, they call it gator tackling, where you're not using your head as much and you put your head behind it. And that's one of them. And then we have a 2-man sled where we call it chuck and shuck. You're stinging it and get off and then angle. So I think that's fun. The kids enjoy it. And then a lot of times we'll add a fumble to it at the end after they, tackle the dummy. Then we'll roll it out and they get to pick it up and score. And
cool.
So I guess right off the top of my head, that would probably be my funnest thing.
Well, as we well know, tackling is pretty important.
Yeah. Get them on the ground. Don't give up that big things.
You better believe it. So, Coach, are you a believer in the phrase "defense wins championships"?
You know what? You got to score some points. I've probably more been, although in my Middletown days, I was more of a D guy most of this until I was head coach, and now I do mainly offense. Run the offense. Obviously, if you can stop people, that really helps. And of course, you throw special. We've always had a good kicker. I mean, for as long as we've been here, and I think one year we don't look at the stats every year, but I think one year, just because they're talking about maybe eliminating kickoff eventually, and so they asked me, they've asked me about it. And
is that for injury purposes?
Yep, for all the the running collisions.
Yeah.
And for me, especially in high school, college and pro, everybody has a good kicker, right? And they can kick it in the end zone almost every time. But in high school, they can't. And so one year, I think we did a study, and we started average starting drive was on like our own 43, and our opponents was like the 26, I think.
Oh wow, that's a big discrepancy or difference.
My one son Troy, he was a receiver, but he was also our kicker. And I think he had 30 touchbacks his senior year on kickoffs. He kicked for 3 years, and it goes back to that defense winning championships. If you can make a team go 80 yards on most of those drives, we'll find a way to get them stopped. Obviously there's teams that are good and make big plays,
right.
But prevent those big plays and just make them work, and eventually something good will happen.
Right. Well, yeah, when the distance is 80 yards versus what, 57 yards, there's a big difference.
Exactly.
Big difference. All right, Coach. Well, we're going to come to the close of our time together. I can't tell you how much I appreciate hearing about your family and hearing about your coaching and playing careers, as well as your favorite drills and plays. And these guys over here will just greatly appreciate that. And, you know, as we've developed relationships with them, we've told them about you guys, we've shared with the equipment that's been donated. And, you know, now for them to, you know, just get a taste of the personality of the coach who's been behind that, as well as we'll be calling you in the future, hopefully, and
Yeah.
get
Hopefully,
a
I want
chance.
to go over there with you guys someday.
All
That'd be
right, I
fun.
like that. That's awesome.
That'd be fun because I got a
Yeah.
lot of time in the summer.
Yeah, good. So I'm going to finish off with a word association, and so I'm going to give you a word, and once that word is said, you know, just whatever comes to your mind, one or two words that you have in response. All right.
Yep.
So here we
I'll
go.
give
We'll
it a
have some
shot.
fun with this. You ready?
Yep. I'm ready.
Like a game show. Here we go. Love,
Family,
hard work,
discipline,
fun,
smiles,
family.
togetherness.
Ooh, good. Dream,
Oh, that's a good one. My kids end up happy. My kids end up happy and productive.
faith,
God,
Ohio,
hometown.
I had Texas down here, and I was like, well, wait a second, I can't say Texas. You'll say a foreign country.
Yeah,
Football.
I've only been there a couple of times. We played Baylor one time, the
Okay.
Baylor Bears, when Walter Abercrombie, I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, okay.
And we did all right. It ended up being like 35-14 or something, but it was fun.
Football.
Toughness.
The Balkans.
I'd like to see it someday.
Yes. Friendship.
I was going to say relationship, but I guess that's the same thing. Take care of each other.
Communication.
Respond. So you're getting what, you know, I know what you're telling me. I want to know exactly what you're saying.
Awesome. Man, Coach, I can't tell you again how much I appreciate it. I know these guys over there will appreciate it. And, you know, his print's all about building relationships. And thank you for your support. Thank you for the gift of equipment in the past. And, you know, hey, I can always dream. And my dream is that through the process, you know, we introduced you to the Balkans. We'd love to possibly lure you in to bring you over that direction. I know the guys would now say, hey, I know Coach Otten. So thanks so much.
Yep, thank you. Remember that, I don't know if they want to watch any of that cavfootball.com, that I'll give them a good taste of what high school football is about.
Awesome. So you got 30 seconds. What would be parting advice or parting wisdom you would give to these coaches?
Yeah, that's good. It keeps coming back to me about coaching constructively and make it a positive experience. You know, yelling and screaming at kids, especially if they're kids. You know, every once in a while, as you know, sometimes you got to bark at somebody, but a little bit. But coaching constructively and show them that you care, and you know, if you're supposed to be, show up every day, and show up with a be where you're at when you're there attitude, and gosh, they're sports. I mean, nobody has to play sports, so if they're going to be there, let's make it fun for them and teach them, and then hopefully you suck in all the learning lessons without them even knowing it, by just talking about it and,
Amen to that.
and showing them the way.
Amen. Thanks again, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right, Dave. Thank you.
Uh-huh.